Welcome. I thank you for joining us. This is our daily Bible study, and I am your host, Dr. Derek A. Reeves. Today we begin a new study, and it's entitled Understanding Fear. Our first segment for the day is Understanding Fear. Let's dive right into it. When we talk about fear, fear is a very elaborate emotion because there's so much that goes into it. And it is so powerful in the lives of others that they came up with an entire system of studying fear called phobiology. And so in this study, we're going to hopefully help you to understand what fear is, why fear is so riveting to the mind, to the hearts, and how come fear can actually hijack the very thought processes and render you into a state that goes against all that you know, whether it's biblical, whether it's about God, whether it's about your skills, your preparedness, or whatever. Fear has a tendency of hijacking the mind and causing us to do one of the 4 F's. The 4 F's are: fear can cause one to fight, flight, freeze, or faint. Now, let's dive right into it. Fear is considered to be an unpleasant emotion by the belief that someone or something is dangerous, likely to cause pain, or a threat. Not only is fear that, but fear also is dread, fright, alarm, panic, terror, trepidation, painful agitation in the presence of anticipation of danger. Fear is the most general term and implies an anxiety and usually a loss of courage. And so let's get into the biblical the biblical context of fear. And so as we look at the scriptures and as we begin to understand the context of what scripture is literally saying, we have to understand that there are maybe about 8 terms that deal with heaven, approximately. But there are approximately 40 unique terms that are associated with fear. 31 terms that deal with fear itself. And then the rest of the terms, the rest of the 9 terms, deal with things like feareth, fearful, fears, and so forth. If fear is so explicably important that the scripture speaks of it, then it behooves us to understand just what fear is. Fear is considered to be the antithetical substance of faith. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And so faith then produces, while fear also produces, but it produces the things that we dread, the things that we fear, the things that unnerve us, the things that cause us negative emotion. And so you have 2 poles. One is faith, one is fear. Most human beings live somewhere in between, closer either to fear or to faith. And so in this series, we're going to understand the types of fear. Is it fear that is intellectually based? Is it fear that is emotionally based? Is it fear that is volitionally based? And then what stage or level of the consciousness is your fear active? Is it fear from the highest level of consciousness? Is it fear in the subconscious? Or is it fear in the unconscious? We're going to find out that fear typically resides in the unconscious. It is revealed through the subconscious in subtle ways that we're not aware of. And then there are times when it moves strictly into the conscious level, and from there it moves into the upper level conscious, where the conscious then begins to respond from the subconscious. We're going to take a little break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to our daily Bible study. I am your host again, Dr. Derek A. Reeves, and we're talking about the definition of fear, understanding fear. Now, we said before that faith is the substance of things hoped for. Fear is the substance of things that we dread. Even Job said, "The things that I've greatly feared has come upon me." Isaiah 43:1 says, "Don't fear, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. You are mine." And so God actually commands us not to fear or worry. And so the phrase "fear not" is used at least 80 times in the Bible, most likely because he knows the enemy uses fear to decrease our hope and to limit our victories. And so when we consider fear, again, we're dealing with fear and understanding it so we can begin to try to exercise more in faith. There are 5 top fears that most humans face. The 5 top fears that all humans face is, number 1, debugging humankind's most common fears. Fears are tasked with the function of keeping us alive. So fear can be good, but fear can also be incapacitated. These are the top areas of fear. Social phobia. People are afraid of society, what can happen in society, or whether or not they will be accepted or rejected in society. There is a fear of heights. Many people are actually afraid it's not the height, but sometimes it's the fear of falling from the heights. And so the heights can be associated with falling or death. Then there is fear of bugs, snakes, or spiders. Many people have these phobias, and they are segmented, and sometimes these phobias can keep people up at night or even cause them to really have very austere and very, very strange dreams that can be unsettling. Some people break out in cold sweat. Some people, again, they flee for their lives. And these fears are caused by many different things. We're not going to try to get into a psychoanalytic approach, but we want you to understand fear. There is the fear of closed places. Some people feel like the walls are closing in, and there are many different reasons why this could have developed in the psyche of individuals. There is the fear of flying. Again, the fear of flying is associated with the fear of falling from the sky. So there are many different arenas for why fear can take place in this arena. There is a fear of the dark. The dark symbolizes the unknown. And because the unknown is always dreadful to individuals, many things can work within the mind or the psyche of the individual who are experiencing these things. Then there is the fear of getting a disease. And so these are some of the most, I'll say, common fears that most people experience. And so fear is in every aspect of our life. There are some who claim that there are 7 types of fears. The 7 types of fears that people utilize on the fear chart, or the 7 deadly fears chart, is the fear of connecting. And the fear of connecting generally is because individuals feel they may be rejected. Then there is the fear of being abandoned, the fear of self-assertion, the fear of lack of recognition, the fear of failure and success, and the fear of being fully alive. These are some very interesting fears because on this chart of deadly fears, we find a lot of this has to do with interaction and inward desires, inward compunctions, or inward perspectives of self and others and life. And so fear is in every aspect of our lives. Fear can be used to control. Fear can be self-perpetuated, and it can disrupt our lives, our relationships, and everything that God has given to us. Fear is a very deadly, but in sometimes a very necessary emotion. I thank you for joining us. I am your host, Dr. Derek A. Reeves, and this has been our daily Bible study. Until next time, God bless and keep you.